what's on this page. 4, you could go to our site and go to page 66 to learn even more depth about what's on this page. And that's what's throughout this report. You're going to have a reference to the book and where you can find out more, okay? So the first thing we look at here is satisfaction and energy. And there's one question in the CAT that measures satisfaction. On the whole, I'm satisfied with how things are in our church. To the right, you're going to see how you responded. Now, a little reminder, since it's been a few months since you've done it, most of the questions, do you remember, were on a 6-point scale? You answered strongly disagree, disagree, tend to disagree, tend to agree, agree, or strongly agree. On this first page here, we've condensed the categories. Later on, you'll see all of them. So where it says clearly agree, it's those who answered this way. Those who tended are on the fence, and those who responded in these two categories clearly disagree. So, for St. James, on the whole, I'm satisfied with how things are. 50% agreed. 36% were on the fence. They were in the 10-2s, and 14% clearly disagreed. Of 32 people, that's probably 1 or 2 people. I mean, let's get the numbers in your head about what those percentages mean. Now, you'll see after that it says rating of church satisfaction level average. What we do at Holy Cow is we show you your results, but then what we learned over the years, we would just have a report that showed the results, and then we'd always get questions of, well, how does that compare to how everybody else is doing? It's nice that we answered this way, but what does that mean? Well, now we show you the comparison to all the churches who've done the CAT across the country. And so compared to the database of churches who have done the CAT in the last 5 years, probably about 500 churches nationally, your level of satisfaction is average or typical. So having 50% clearly agree they're satisfied and a third on the fence and a smaller percentage disagreeing is typical of most churches across the country. So you're normal. And that's great. Now, then you have to decide, is that good enough that you're typical? Because, you know, if and I'm looking at this data all the time, I'm saying, well, okay, it's typical that 50% of everybody in every church across the country is satisfied. We could do better than that. And so I'm not telling you need to think that way, but you might want to say, well, how do we get that to 80% who clearly agree? Okay, and we'll learn later on what would get you there, okay? But you're typical. And it's better than being below average, or I've worked with congregations that are very low. And there's a lot of conflict going on. I don't sense that here, okay? And I'll tell you why later. All right, then the other question is the energy question. It's worded in the negative. It seems to me we're just going through the motions of church activity. There isn't much excitement about church among our members. So you want people to disagree to this one because it's worded in the negative. And here you've got a little over a third disagreeing, a bigger percentage on the fence, and a smaller percentage agreeing, and it puts you again in, compared to others, as typical, average. What I want you to understand about the on the fence people, and in both cases, I mean, in one case it's a little over a third, and in the energy question it's almost half. I want you to think about the on the fence people as, since we're all going to vote in another week, the undecided voters in an election, and the difference that they make for candidates in terms of which way they will vote. And so you have a lot of undecideds about energy and especially about energy, but some about satisfaction. And so the way that this church moves forward in the future is going to sway your on the fence people one way or the other. And you hope it's going to sway them the direction you hope. So, and that's typical of many churches across the country. And so they're a danger and they're an opportunity, are the on the fence folks. So think of it that way. All right. We also look at attendance trends. You were asked, compared to 3 years ago, I attend worship less, same, or more. You've got folks saying they overall attend church less. I see this as pretty typical nationally, but I see it particularly typical when I'm working with a seasonal church. So I wouldn't have great alarm. It's just because you've got people coming and going during the different seasons. And that is an issue I have no idea how to solve in terms of church attendance, because I mean, I imagine you have some very committed seasonal people, and then you have some that kind of come and go, and probably based on their lifestyle of just coming and going. So that's a hard nut to crack. So don't be super alarmed by that statistic. The next piece, the value of activity beyond worship. The question was, on the whole, participation in church activities is very meaningful to me. Almost 70% agreed with that. That's really good. This measures the relational fabric of the congregation. You know, how important are your relationships with each other beyond being together on a Sunday morning? And this is saying at 70%, you all have relationships with each other that extend beyond being here Sunday. Whether it's in church, and maybe you do things outside of church together, you do things in ministry together, and that's meaningful to you. You've got a quarter that are on the fence and probably one person at 7% who's saying, it's not that meaningful to me. Overall, that's average, but it's high average. So that's a strength that you can build on. Relational strength is important. Now, I didn't feel this at all. Everyone was very welcoming to me this morning. Sometimes when congregations are really tight relationally and there are visitors pick up on that and they say, ooh, this is a really nice tight-knit group. I wonder if I can break into it. So that strength of relationship is wonderful, and if you are, you want new people to join you, you have to be very conscious and intentional about bringing them into the fold. Okay? All right. You were asked to rank order a number of priorities. There were 17 of them. We'll get to all 17. On this summary page, it shows you the top 3. The question was, where would you like additional energy placed to expand or improve the ministries of the church? And here are your top 3, and guess what? They are most typical of most typical churches. 96% of the churches who use the CAT have your top 2 priorities as their top 2 in one order or the other. Develop and implement comprehensive strategies to reach new people and make necessary changes to attract families. With young people, what are those 2 priorities about?
New members.
New members, you want to grow. Why?
To reach more people, to bring Jesus to all of them.
To bring Jesus to all of them. Any other reasons? So it's your future. Future of the church. Okay, well, I like your answers. When I ask many congregations why they want to grow, I hear things like, well, we need money. We need butts in the pew. And the last thing they say, if they say it at all, was the first thing that you said, that we want people to know Jesus and be transformed by that. That is just a great sign to me that that was your first answer. You know why you're here. You know why you're here. And those of you who are at convention heard me say in one of my presentations that mission is everything. That you know why you're here, what God is calling you to do. As Father Tidy talked about in his sermon today, that is the first place to start. And so I'm thrilled with your answer. It's no surprise for a small congregation that your 3rd priority has to do with improving your stewardship. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But overall, since this is an overall and now